10 African countries leading in oil production. When talking about oil production on a global scale, it's important to note that 5 of the top 30 world producing countries are African. Oil production in Africa accounted for more than 7.9 million barrels per day in 2019, which is about 9.6% of world output. This level of production is down somewhat from the height of 2005 to 2010, when African production was nearly 10 million barrels per day. The major production declines between 2010 and 2015 were mostly due to lower global oil prices. The African Petroleum Producers Organization, or APO, is an organization of African countries producing petroleum, which was created in 1987 in Lagos, Nigeria, to serve as a platform for cooperation and harmonization of efforts, collaboration, sharing of knowledge and skills among African oil-producing countries. In this organization, Nigeria is the leader, which is naturally understood, as it is also the leading oil producer in Africa as of 2020, with oil production amounting to 86.9 million metric tons in the country. Hello and welcome to our channel. In this video, we've got for you top 10 African countries leading in oil production. If you're new here, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on post notifications in order not to miss out on our videos. Number 10. Chad, 109,000 barrels per day. Chad ranks as the 10th largest oil reserve holder among African countries, with 1.5 billion barrels of proven reserves as of 2018 and production of over 140,000 barrels per day in 2020. Petroleum is Chad's primary source of public revenue, and around 90% of oil production is exported. Estimated to hold 1 billion barrels of oil reserves, Chad derives the majority of its crude from the Doba Basin in the southern part of the country. Major operators include ExxonMobil and Shell, the former of which operates the Chad-Cameroon Development Project that transports crude oil from oil fields in southern Chad via a pipeline to a marine terminal in Cameroon for export. Number 9. Equatorial Guinea, 153,000 barrels per day. Equatorial Guinea crude oil reserves was at a level of 133,000 barrels per day in January 2022, unchanged from the previous month. This figure has seen an increase as it's now at 153,000 barrels per day. Equatorial Guinea's Ministry of Mines and Hydrocarbons is targeting heightened economic activities and $1.1 billion in foreign direct investment into the oil and gas sector as of 2021. Trident Energy is currently conducting a 3-well drilling campaign in Block G to offset declining production at the Seiba and Okume complex. Meanwhile, maintenance works will be conducted at the Zafiro, Jat, and Serpentina infrastructures, along with the optimization of production and management of inactive wells. Number 8. Ghana, 171,000 barrels per day. Next up, we have Ghana. Ghana's oil production is set to decline in 2022 as a result of coronavirus-related restrictions as the country was plagued by the pandemic. Ghana's oil production effectively declined from 189,000 barrels per day to 171,000 barrels per day in April of 2022. However, strong output from the prolific Jubilee and 10 oil fields, in conjunction with rising foreign investment in offshore basin development, has granted Ghana a favorable long-term production outlook. Thanks to new fields coming on stream, in particular, the Acre-operated deepwater Tano Cape 3-point oil production is expected to more than double to 420,000 barrels per day by 2023. The Norwegian operator is also currently working on its $4.4 billion Pecan field, which is estimated to contain between 600,000 and 1 million barrels of oil. Number 7. Gabon, 195,000 barrels per day. In February 2022, production of crude oil for Gabon was 195,000 barrels per day. Production of crude oil of Gabon fell gradually from 230,000 barrels per day in April 2020 to 195,000 barrels per day in February 2022, and Gabonese oil production has been declining due to the maturity of several fields and insufficient investments to renew production bases, compounded by OPEC-led production cuts that have reduced output by over 100,000 barrels per day. As a result, the country is seeking to attract new investment into offshore exploration. Furthermore, following revisions to the Hydrocarbons Code and its promulgation in early 2019, hopes are high that a revised and more flexible regulatory framework will translate into a new capital and technology injections into the sector. Number 6. Republic of the Congo, 271,000 barrels per day. One of the major oil producers of the African continent is the Republic of Congo. Crude oil production in the Republic of Congo averaged 187.60 barrels per day from 1973 until 2022. Offshore oil and gas dominate the extractive sector in the Republic of Congo, and the country has been able to mitigate its production decline by bringing several projects online over the past decade, including its first deep water field, Moho Bilondo. In a bid to boost exploration activities, a multi-client airborne gravity gradient survey is currently being conducted in the Cuvette Basin area. Meanwhile, Zenith Energy secured a new 25-year license at the start of the year to continue to operate the Tilapia oil field. Congo has more or less been stable in the increase in production of oil, increasing from 204,735.33 barrels per day to 271,000 barrels per day in 2022. Number 5. Egypt, 560,000 barrels per day. Now we're getting to the big guns. Egypt is not only a vast economic player in the continent, but also a socioculturally enviable nation. Egypt's production of crude oil was at a level of 554.61 thousand barrels per day in February 2022, down from 555.04 thousand barrels per day the previous month. Egypt produced about 630,000 barrels of oil per day in 2019, with output remaining remarkably steady. The country became much more stable between 2014 and 2019. Egypt is also the largest oil producer in Africa that was not a member of OPEC. Rather, Egypt's state-owned oil company, Egyptian General Petroleum Corporation, EGPC, historically dominated oil production in the country. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the country's oil production has dropped to 560,000 barrels per day as of April 2022. Number 4. Algeria, 1.1 million barrels per day. Algeria produced approximately 1.3 million barrels of oil per day in 2019 to maintain its position among the top tier of African oil producers. However, production is down substantially since 2005, when Algeria's output was almost 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. OPEC production cuts and a lack of foreign investment played major parts in the nation's declining oil output. Algeria also exports substantial amounts of natural gas, most of which goes to Europe. In February 2022, production of crude oil for Algeria was 978,000 barrels per day. Production increased from 870,000 barrels per day in March 2021 to 978,000 barrels per day in February 2022, growing at an average annual rate of 1.07%, and is currently at an average of 1.1 million barrels per day. Number 3. Angola, 1.14 million barrels per day. Angola is the third largest oil producing country in Africa. It produced over 1.4 million barrels of oil per day in 2019, continuing a trend of declining production. This decline was partly due to a cut that the nation agreed to as a member of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Angola offers access to abundant offshore and deepwater oil reserves in the South Atlantic. However, the development of these oil resources could be delayed by sharply lower oil prices in 2020. Though Angola's production of crude oil fluctuated substantially in recent months, it tended to increase through March 2021 to February 2022, ending at 1,158,000 barrels per day in February 2022. As of April 2022, the country produces 1.14 million barrels per day of crude oil. Number 2. Libya, 1.166 million barrels per day. Libya produced almost 1.2 million barrels of oil per day in 2019, up more than 100% since 2016. This fantastic increase was primarily the result of a temporary reduction in armed conflict within the country. Furthermore, Libya was exempt from the 2016 OPEC production cuts because output had already fallen from 1.7 million barrels per day in 2010. Unfortunately, production fell dramatically in early 2020 as the civil war in Libya intensified. Despite its troubles, the country contains the largest proven reserves of oil in Africa. Libya is arguably the second largest oil producer in Africa and among the 30 largest oil producers in the world. Crude oil production in Libya is currently at 1.166 million barrels per day as of April 2022. Number 1. Nigeria, 1.219 million barrels per day. In terms of oil production on the African continent, Nigeria is the leader of the pack. The leading West African nation of the African Petroleum Producers Organization is set to grow its hydrocarbon sector with the launch of more than 100 oil and gas projects over the next 5 years, including 25 upstream projects. The Nigerian Petroleum Development Corporation has pledged to boost production by 250,000 barrels per day over the next 2 years. Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation recently signed a deal with Shell, ExxonMobil, Total, and Eni to develop an offshore oil block that includes the deepwater Bonga field, unlocking up to $10 billion in new investment and adding 150,000 barrels per day to domestic output. Nigeria's crude oil production fell to an average of 1.219 million barrels per day in April 2022, representing a 1.53% decline compared to 1.238 million barrels per day recorded in the previous month. This is according to information in the OPEC monthly oil market report for the month of May 2022. And this brings us to the end of our video. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to share your thoughts in the comment section below and also share this video with your friends. And if you are not subscribed yet, join the Displore family.